All right, I promise I'm going to torture you with only one more example, and let's see if I can make better use of my board here. So I've got this transmitter sending out 30 milliwatts of power, and in this particular case what we're doing is we're getting an access point that is providing coverage, let's say, to an area of a warehouse through a directional antenna. So that means we're going to have a little bit more or a lot more passive gain from that antenna. So in that case, the cable itself is going to subtract 3 dBs of power. And when we get to that antenna, I'll make it look a little more like a dish. How's that? Because it's going to be directional. And it's going to add, in this case, 20 dBis. Right, so we're getting a pretty good start. Now, what we're looking for here is trying again to calculate the IR and EIRP values that is going to be out there. And, you know, one of the things that's really kind of sad, and I hate to say this, is that it's sometimes hard to do the calculations by using 10s and 3s. You saw how tricky it was last time by, you know, figuring out how many 10s to add, how many 3s to subtract. And so sometimes you just can't do this by using 10 or 2. And this is one of those cases. So you're not going to be able to set the milliwatts and dBm values to be equal, but you can still calculate the milliwatt values by using the information that we had before. So again, I'm going to go back to my tables, which is the dBms and the milliwatts. And again, we have the times and divide, 2 and the 10, the plus and the subtract, 3 and 10. And I mean, we could start basically with the idea, what we've done before is started with 0 dBms equals 1 milliwatt. So instead of creating that kind of template, we're going to start off by saying, look, we know we're starting with 30 milliwatts. All right, so why couldn't I do this in a way that made sense? I mean, how many 10s would I have to add, multiply by, or increase to be able to do this, this type of math? It just gets a little tricky. So here we're just going to say, in the dBm column, unknown. So even though we're still not going to know what the actual dBm value is, we can still do some of the necessary mathematics that we'd have to do. So one of the first ones is that we know we are going to subtract 3 dBs from the unknown. So that's going to become basically unknown minus 3. And I know if I'm subtracting 3 that I still am going to divide by 2, so I'm down to 15 milliwatts. Now the next thing is that we're adding 20 dBs. So now if I think about that, if I add 10, then what I'm going to be left with is the unknown at 7. But because I added 10, I know that I'm going to multiply by 10 over here and come up to 150. And, well, I have 20. So then I'm going to add 10 more to the unknown, which makes whatever I started with in dBms still unknown, but I know that it's going to be basically a plus 17 when I'm done with it, right? Because we're at plus 7, plus 7. And again, I'm going to multiply by 10. And so there, I'm seeing what my milliwatts are going to be. Oh, not 15,000. I didn't multiply by 10 very well. We know what that's going to be. We just don't really know what the starting dBs were. But you see, that was still a solution that made things work. I mean, if I had started with 0 dB and 1 milliwatt, I might have had more difficulty getting from 1 milliwatt. I mean, you can imagine if I was starting at 1 milliwatt equal to 0 dBs, then I would have to figure out how to get from 1 to 30 using the rules that we've seen. I could add a bunch of 3s, but I would still not get the right milliwatts. I could add a bunch of 10s, right, because that'd be 21, 31, still not enough, right? I can't then subtract from that point. And so that's why we started off with an unknown dBm, because there was no easy way with this rule to get to that number 30 for the milliwatts. I mean, imagine somewhere along the road we'd get somewhere close, but we only have 10s and 3s to work with over there. So even though I said it may be a little more complex, in reality it wasn't really that bad, was it?